Hey guys, Trip Gill with the East Texas Heritage Railroad Museum here. I had already filmed all this. This is actually my second take with this today, and it didn't go well, so I'm having to redo it. I'm sitting in my truck, my grandmother's house, because it is raining and I do not want to go sit in the rain and record all this by the Union Pacific Main Line in Overton. So, this is East Texas Tales of the Rails edition. East Texas Tales. It's East Texas Tales of the Rails. There will be others that are set in Louisiana and maybe the Panhandle area and like DFW area of Texas, and maybe some in Arkansas if I get a chance. But this episode, the first episode of it, was on the Blacklands Railroad and the HOB Railroad in runs from Overton, Texas to Henderson, Texas. It's about 15 miles of track. It was started in 1874, in May 1874, and about halfway through construction, and what a place! I think it was near Poindexter. That's milepost number 5 on the Overton sign coming from Overton. They had to stop construction because they ran out of funding. So in 1875, I believe, or 70, it was either 75 or early 76, the International Great Northern, who had just bought the railroad, I believe, oh, there's a squirrel, from the Houston and East Texas, or whatever it was before, bought the line and continued building it to Henderson so they could connect to a large cotton mill that was down in Henderson, which is still there. It's not the same one. It was rebuilt in the 1930s, and that's the one that's still there. So they hauled early products, cotton, probably some grain, probably some clothes or stuff like that. They did passengers too, but not enough to really be a big deal. And then in, I believe, 1934, it was either 34 or 44, I don't remember. I'll have to look, and I'll add in notes in the description. The Texas and Pacific Railroad bought the IGN, and so they subsequently became the owners of the line. And under them, a wreck happened on the HOB right past milepost number 5 in a pond. Curves, and then it goes into a pond. And I don't know if it was due to flood damage or due to rail damage, or even sabotage, or that they were just speeding and it was too much for that curve. But the passenger train, I believe it was a passenger train, there's no record of it being either a freight or a passenger. There's nothing to go off of. Do know it was a 460. It was either early IGN or early Texas and Pacific 460. Crashed into the pond, killing the engineer and the fireman due to some unrelated stuff, which I will not go into. It was pond water. I know, and all the passenger cars, the baggage, I think it was combine. If the source that tells that it's a passenger car or passenger train is correct, it was going to be a baggage car, a combine, and some sort of observation or open deck in car. If it's a freight, I don't know. It would have probably just been box cars and flat cars or whatever. Sorry about that. It crashed, and then we'll get into that later. I do have a story related to that. Actually, I have 2 stories related to that. But they were able to rescue the locomotive, and it went back into service wherever I believe. And then in about 1950s, late 50s, early 60s, Missouri Pacific took over the line when they purchased the Texas and Pacific Railroad, and they ran steam a little bit longer. I think they ran a 280 and a 260 into the early 60s because it was already there and they were already well acquainted, so they just kept all of that. And then when they finally changed over, they brought in one GP40 and two, it was a GP7 and a GP9. Don't know their numbers, just know that it was a GP40, and I don't know when the GP40 was brought in. I know the GP7 and the GP9 were probably brought in when the steam was still working there. And then that's all the history for. Oh, sorry, I forgot something. While owned by the IGN and the International Great Northern, they connected at the cotton gin in 1924 with the Henderson and Timpson Railroad, which came all the way from Timpson, which is out near Nacogdoches. And it was a 3-foot gauge, narrow gauge line, which owned a 280 and a 460, and that's all they did. They only did cotton and logging and passenger trains occasionally, but it was very occasional that they would run passenger because they didn't have really anyone to meet up with, especially in the IGN era, because IGN didn't run passenger trains. They didn't really have a reason. Texas Pacific did occasionally, but that was because of the oil refineries and the war effort. There were more people coming between Overton and Henderson than usual. So back to 1972, a foundry was built in an industrial park. I believe it's where the brick plant, the current Georgia brick plant or whatever, whoever owns it, is. It was a big oil refinery, supposedly. And that was there. And then in 1982, when Missouri Pacific was bought by the Union Pacific, of course, the HOB, the Henderson Overton branch, went to the Union Pacific, who brought in rock trains, I think unit rock trains, until like 1999, when they filed for abandonment, but the people of Rusk County did not want to lose their railroad, so they founded the Rusk County Rural Rail District, and they bought it from the Union Pacific. And then in 2002 or 2003, they redid some of the line, not a lot of it, but some of it. And then in 2010, I don't know what happened in between that. In 2010, they leased it out. They began leasing it out to the Blacklands Railroad, which is the current owners of the HOB. Well, not the owners; they're current operators. Sorry, of the HOB Railroad. And during that time, the early time, they had when they weren't using Union Pacific rock train power, which they were still bringing in, they had a GP40 number 3000, which was ex Rio Grande, and then they had GP10 number 70. I can't remember. I think it worked for Great Northern in Burlington Northern. And then after they had been going for a little while, in about 2017, they had number 10, they had number 201, which was a GP9M. They had 2036, which was a GP20, and they had, it was like 9261 or something like that. And it was a leaser from S&S Leasing, I believe. No clue about its history. I only know the 3000 and the 10. The 2036 worked for the Santa Fe. It was a Chromadoke? The SPSF merger paint. I don't know how to pronounce it. And then in 2018, they swapped from all those locomotives. They kept 201, 70, and the S&S leaser, and the rest of it went up to Sulphur Springs, Winfield area. Well, on that line, I'll probably do another episode on that because it's at Cotton Belt, and I'm at Cotton Belt Nerd. They brought in two more locomotives, two GP38-2s. One was rebuilt from an ATSF GP35. The other was rebuilt from a GP38 into a GP38-3 from also a ATSF It was also ATSF. 3905 and 3814. They were LTEX units. And they stayed here until last year, actually. They stayed here until last January when they were taken off by my friend who was an engineer down here. His name was Mark. And they gave a great send-off, which my friend Everett, who's the founder of the East Texas Heritage Railroad Museum with me, I'm the co-founder, has a great video up, which I'll leave in the description. I never got to posting my videos of it, but they brought in these two mother slug units. They were ex-CSX. One is a GP30 and a GP40. The other is a GP38, which is dead, and a GP40. The two GP40s are the main locomotives, the power of the traction motors for the other two. And, oh, sorry, I forgot a locomotive, actually. I forgot 2301 or 501, whichever you want to know, or whichever you ask, was a SD50 built in 1981, I believe, for the Chicago Northwestern. It was a SD50, and then it worked for them for 20 years or whatever, and then it worked for somebody else, I don't remember who, and then it went to Texas Illuminate, and then the Blacklands bought it, so it worked on the HOB for about a year or two, and then it went down for paint, and then it went to Winfield, Texas, to work on their other railroad up there that they actually own. But anyway, so they brought in these two mother slug units, and or mother cab units, whatever you want to call them. It's the same thing, and they are okay. I don't like them. They don't look good. They look okay. If the 30 is leading, it's a good day. If it's not leading, but they can handle the trains. It's more than enough power. That's 6,000 horsepower plus 2 extra on each set of traction motors, which can handle 30 cars. If they would stop overpowering them, they keep stalling out on the big hills around here. But it would be better. But I guess now I'm going to do a little segment on the railroad or the museum's history. I think I said I was going to do our own video on it, but I don't have time this week. I don't think to get out to Longview to do it. So I'm gonna actually stop the video here, and I'll edit all this out. No, I'm just gonna keep rolling. So I've never done this before, so I'm just gonna make it one-shot video. This is the second time, and I don't want to go back and fix all that history, and then I'll add some stories at the end that Mark and my friend Aaron, who used to work there, also told me. So it's fine. So the East Texas Heritage Railroad Museum, or historical, we haven't figured it out yet, is a newly founded startup museum, which will be based out of, hopefully, the Texas and Pacific and the ATSF. I'm not gonna pronounce that whole Santa Fe, whatever, every time I say it. So there was a transfer yard or interchange in Longview that sat, here's ATSF, here's Texas and Pacific, sat in the middle, and they would switch their cars around, and it has been abandoned for nearly 20 years, I believe. I think it was used in 2010s to store cars, but not full on use them to switch cars. They do that at a loop track. It goes around and loops into the Union Pacific yard up there, and we are attempting to buy it, hopefully, and two coaches. One is it's KCS 52, was a business car on their KCS business train. It has been abandoned in a field for the last 20-30 years. Previous to that, it was owned by the Trinity Valley Rail Fan Club, based out of DFW area. And before that, we're not to the KCS era yet, it was privately owned and used for a movie at the Reeder Railroad, which I will have a video on. I won't be able to go there, though, because I'm not driving 3.5 hours just to be told I can't go on the property. If I get permission to go, I will do a video on them. I will do a video there on them, but it'll probably just be like a truck video like I'm doing today. It was in the movie Boxcar Bertha as one of the coaches at the end of the movie that they sit around in or something like that. I haven't been able to watch the movie because it costs too much to rent on YouTube. And before that, of course, it worked for the KCS on their business trains. But we've been in contact with the current owner, and she has informed us that when we get our home base done, then we can talk business about the car. So that's that. We've raised $25 towards either of these two cars. And then on the other end, closer to me, this other car is up towards Sulphur Springs. I'm not going to give an exact area. You can always go Google it if you really want to go look at it. Just don't trespass. On the second car is a CB&Q Hiawatha? I don't know how to pronounce it. Sleeper coach, which is near Crockett, Texas. It's on Rattlesnake Ranch. It's being sold on Ozark Mountain Rail Car for $13,000, and that's a second car we would like because we do technically sit on what used to be ATSF, and that's technically it's all technically BNSF, it's technically ATSF, stuff like that. So we're working to get that car as well. And we have a single steam locomotive, which we're also trying to get. Some people may know it as being the steam locomotive that sits in Ford Park in Shreveport, Louisiana. It's been sitting there since, I believe, the 60s, the early 60s, and has been it's so dilapidated. We're hoping to contact the city regarding acquiring the steam locomotive. Just for static display. We don't want anything fancy. We don't want to attempt to steam something up just yet. So there's that. Talked about the two coaches. It will be cosmetically restored. The previous owners were the Darnells, I don't know how to pronounce it, and Russellville Railroad up in Arkansas, and we do consider it one of our planned locomotives. There's two others which I can't talk about. One of them is a 210-4, and it's up further north, out that way. Well, I'll talk about it in a future episode if I do get permission from my friend Everett, the owner, and if we do hear from the museum up there that we may be receiving it. But that's our car-wise, that's it. Our plan is to build a shop which will house it, but we preferably would like a brick shop because of the Texas and Pacific Depot being brick and some of the old buildings downtown being brick. We would love a brick shop based on the Marshall shops that use the Texas and Pacific Marshall shops, which we cannot rebuild because it'll be the biggest locomotive we're gonna have is like 132 feet long, and we don't really want to put cars in there. But if we have like chrome cars, we'd love to put them in the shop, along with another steam locomotive, which we may or may not be getting, which would absolutely need to go in the shop because it is dilapidated, even worse than number 10. But I can't talk about that because, like I said, there's no real plans for it to be gotten just yet. It's up in Arkansas, I can say that though. It's the last of its railroad. And then I'll do some stories, I guess. I have two stories. They're kind of the same story, but they're different tellings, slightly different tellings, and they happen on different days. First story was told by my friend Mark, who's an engineer for the Blacklands at the HOB. Until up recently, we're not going to get into that. He told me that in that area near the wreck, that one day they were coming back at night and they saw a red lantern and somebody walking down the tracks with a red lantern, and they stopped. They got down and they stopped. They got down to a stop, and he got down off the locomotive and went to see, and he turned I don't remember what he said. It's like he turned to look back at the cab to motion for the conductor to come down too, and it was gone, or something along those lines. I do not remember. And it was right near the pond that the locomotive wrecked into, so they think that maybe it was the fireman or the conductor trying to warn that something had happened. I don't know. And then the second story is in the exact same spot. Well, on the other side, they were coming back from Overton that day. This next story, they were coming back from Henderson, and it was a different engineer. It was my friend Aaron, I believe, and then a different conductor. It wasn't Aaron working that day. And it was broad daylight, and there was supposedly a man with a lantern. They couldn't tell what color it was, but it was a man with a lantern walking towards them in the cab of the locomotive back. Sorry. And they got down and stopped and got out, and there was nothing there. So, which you can't really see. And it said, you know, could have been a hitchhiker or a hobo or whatever. Hobo? Homeless person. I guess technically a hobo. Someone trying to rob the train even. But I don't know. I don't believe in the supernatural. I'm a Christian. So it is what it is. It's whatever you want to believe. You can believe it's the ghostly conductor or the ghostly fireman or the ghostly engineer trying to warn them of that curve. Or you can believe it was a hobo that found a lantern and he ran off into the woods or something. Those are the two stories I've heard. There's plenty more, but I'm not going to share them because they're not as like cool. They're like just like, yeah, one day we took 150 cars across kind of stories, and those are cool, but they're cooler to see and record. So at the end of this video, I'll include a couple clips I took Friday of there was one of the Job 43, which is the troop to Kilgore Local with all the, I think it's ARP and Overton in between, and their engineer and their conductor, that job's engineer and conductor, are very friendly people, and they put on a good show coming through Overton that day, while the Blacklands took a 55 car train across with a little locomotive with the other dead in tow. They did a great job until they stalled right over the loop crossing. They stopped. They full on stalled, and they had to get out and walk the whole train to get in the rear locomotive. But it was a nice little show of those slug units actually being put to real work. And there's a couple nice videos I did take. So those will be included shortly at the end of this video. Be about 5-6 minutes of it. And then I'll include in the description some rail archive photos of, or RG, I don't know what it is. It's like Argyle Rail or something. I don't know what it is. It'll be the sleeper coach number 10 and KCS 52. I don't know if KCS 52 is on that site though. Also, I will be including a link to my friends over at the Southern Pine Locomotive Company, and their locomotive number 20, which has been moved from Pineland along with the depot, the ATSF Pineland Depot. Their Facebook and YouTube, if they have one, will be linked down below, as well as their store link, maybe, if I remember. Probably won't. And I'll link our GoFundMe down below. Also, we've raised, I think I said in the other clip, I've had to cut the clips in half. I think we've raised $25 in 2 months. So, any help, it could be $1, it could be $100, is greatly appreciated. And some donators, or some early donators, will have plaques on either the locomotives will have on the inside or the outside of the cabs, or in one of the coaches, or on the wall of the shop or museum building with your name and whatever. put up. So I've gone over the history. Sorry, I'm taking a checklist. I've gone over the history. I've gone over the modern history. I've gone over the start of the railroad. I've gone over the mid area of the railroad. I've gone over the modern area. I've gone over the stories. I've gone over to the spiel for the depot or the museum. Gone over the cars we'll have and or aim to get. I've gone over the sponsor bit, and I've gone over whatever it is. I can't remember. I've gone over all. I hope this should be out. You should be watching this tonight. I'm recording it on Sunday at 2:19 p.m. and it should be out at about 5 tonight or 6 tonight, I hope. I'll also link my friend Everett's channel down below so you can go watch his video of the Blacklands. He has 2 or 3 videos of the Blacklands and some videos of the slug units being brought in. I think as long as some Texas State Railroad videos, which are great. I've got to get a cable, and mine will be up soon on the Texas State Railroad. Not Texas State Railroad number 30 painted American Freedom Train colors, though, because I didn't get out there to see that because I didn't know that was happening. So, like I said, I was not asked by the Southern Pine Locomotive Company to include them in this video, but I thought, being a good friend and being a fellow museum that would also like to start up like they are and taking great inspiration in them, I would include them in the end of this clip, or this video, sorry. Compensator. And so you can go check out their Facebook. I think they have an Instagram page. They have a website as well. They have a great mission with number 20. It's a beautiful locomotive. I believe they just began doing some work on the cab as well. So there's all that. I'm going to go ahead and begin editing this now. Any updates will be left in shorts, posts, or I'll make a video about it if it's a big enough update. We are currently looking for a alternate building place. We have a building that we'd like to purchase from the city of Longview to have as an early museum building separate from the shops, but there's no indication if we will actually get that or not. It's all up to our donors, which we hope we'll get more of. We are very new to all of this. So my name is Trip Gill. I'm the co-founder of the East Texas Heritage Railroad Museum, and that is the history, and that is ancient history to modern history of the HOB Railroad and a little bit of the Blacklands Railroad.